that have been associated with me, I can't in good conscience accept graduate students anymore. Because if they go out, you talked at the beginning about this register that's been set up in Britain, where if you are accused of a non-crime hate act, it's recorded without a trial. I mean, I've been on hiring committees many, many times, and especially in academia, there's an oversupply of highly qualified people, of radical oversupply. And so if there's anything in your record at all that's the least bit contentious, it's like you're done. And so being my student, that's not a little bit contentious. That's really, really contentious. And so it's now become impossible for me to serve my proper function as a scientist and as a university professor. So it's taking a lot of adjustment on my part to get accustomed to that. And I don't practice clinically anymore as well. And there are a variety of reasons for that. But certainly I've become very, very susceptible to attacks through the College of Psychologists, the governing board. They can make the life of a practitioner brutally miserable with a single letter. And that's very, very punishing. And it's also perhaps not necessarily good for my potential clients to be associated with someone who's controversial. They already have enough trouble. So although I've been fortunate on the family and friends front, on the professional front, things have been, more dismal.
Isn't that just suggestive of the power of this movement and the effectiveness of cancel culture? In fact, the ease with which people can become stigmatized. All it takes is a few accusations of you're far right or alt right or whatever, and it's there. Any prospective employer can Google that and it comes up, and who's going to take the risk? The accusation is sufficient to damn you, and that's what.
Well, that you put the finger on the absolute catastrophe of the non-crime hate index. It's like, well, it's a permanent stain, especially in a technological universe where nothing is ever forgotten, no matter how long the lag.
And it's worse because the government here feels no compunction to address this or to...
It's
no politician
to
seem to has... Well, I suppose they are... Well, because the strategy is that if you oppose hate speech laws, you're obviously a hateful person. Why else would you oppose hate speech law? It's the old thing. And a politician doesn't want to stand up in Parliament and be the one who is seen to be siding with the evil guys, the bad guys.
Well, you have to make a very, very subtle argument to stand up against hate speech laws, because you're faced with the problem that there is such a thing as hate speech. Yeah, obviously. And it's pernicious and terrible. It's like, okay, so you're arguing uphill. This is again why it's such a bloody miracle that we ever had free speech to begin with. It's almost inconceivable to me that we managed to generate the baseline presumption of innocence. That's a miracle. The fact that you can go bankrupt and start again, that's a miracle. The idea that you ever had free speech and that was genuinely the case, that's a miracle. And none of this is given the appropriate respect and awe that it deserves, because it's so unlikely.
It's hugely unlikely. I mean, I know in the book I give a kind of very, very short history of free speech from the ancient Greeks to today, and the point of that is to accentuate this point that actually the fact that we have it is astonishing and unlikely, so unlikely, and all the more reason why we need to defend it. We need to be really, really vigilant about any cracks that appear in this, because it will go away very, very easily, if we don't defend it. And it's hard, particularly when it comes to the idea of. That's why I wrote a chapter on hate speech, because and took the other side's view seriously, because just trashing the opposing argument isn't going to help. We have to talk about it and explain, why it's important nevertheless. Well, for one thing, like you say, hateful speech exists. Let's start from that point. Let's acknowledge that hateful speech exists, and it can be hurtful and it can do damage. But then the alternative is a state that might in the future be completely unscrupulous, that is going to decide for you what you can say. And those are the things that we have to tackle. And the other key thing is that no one knows how to define hate speech. UNESCO, the European Court of Human Rights, they've all agreed There's no way to define hate speech. Every European country that has hate speech laws has different hate speech laws, different definitions, subjective, abstract concepts such as hate, such as offense, such as perception, and these are on the statute books. And you don't want this stuff on the statute books because it's all very well. I mean, I know we talked about the SNP and their hate crime bill. The defense I'm always running into is people are saying, yes, okay, technically, someone could be arrested and imprisoned for saying an offensive joke, technically, yes. But no one in their right mind, no jury, no judge is going to... We've got common sense, it's okay. Well, that's so myopic. I mean, because you don't know who's going to be in charge in 10 years' time. You don't know who that judge is going to be. How can you possibly just...
You can be certain that someone will be in charge that doesn't approve of you and that you don't approve of. That will certainly happen.
You don't want vague wording on the statute books. It's going to be exploited at some point, even if it's not today. There's absolutely no way that you can guarantee it against the future abuses of that. And I don't. It is, as you say, it's a certainty. So, I think it's actually one of the most important arguments that we should make. And that we need to do, free speech needs to be defended in every successive generation. It's not something that you know this, you get it and then it's there forever. No, that's not true. There's something about human nature. There's something about people in power. There's something about the way that we are that it will collapse. It's an edifice that is not secure at any given time. But it's hard. It's that thing of being smeared. The risk is you're going to be smeared. You're going to be associated with the worst possible kinds of people because, of course, it's only really controversial speech that ever requires protection. And people are going to say, well, then you must support what these awful people are saying. And it's hard to make the case, but it's a case that nonetheless has to be made. And particularly by politicians. I've been incredibly disappointed by the way in which politicians in this country have not made any kind of effort to if anything, as from what I can see, there are moves even in the English Parliament to push through further hate speech laws. We should be repealing them, not pushing for them. But no one wants to have the argument. No one wants to be tainted.
Yeah, well, they get identified one by one and taken out. That's what happens.
Well, you get put on a list. This is it. The identitarian left, if that's what we're going to call them. I don't know what to call them. That's the problem. Is they're very clever about evading even a label. But they like making their lists. They like observing and saying, you are problematic. You have sinned, and now they have an electronic trail. These are the people that absolutely love going through all of your old tweets and messages, and anything they can find. And of course, the point about that is you can do that to anyone. There is